Okay, this is the second half of the video on Agamemnon. I don't think it will be an hour. Um, I don't. I don't want to bore you. I don't want to extend your hospitality. If you want to read the book, there's a book. So it's Global Scholarly Publications. If you want to look online. Okay, so this in this section, I'm going to just go through, just talk about the play in terms of the different virtues and vices of Aristotle and how they're embodied in the characters, and then I'll go through the criteria of tragedy for just a minute or two to review to show you that the play does follow all those patterns, and then finally just again wrap it up once more with the context of educating citizens for a free and open society. And this is where I think it's so important as globalization occurs and societies that were more authoritarian are trying to become more democratic, but you have to educate the citizens. And the kind of education that the, the kind of character traits the chorus has, and the kind of education that goes on when citizens look at the tragedy and think about it is exactly, I think, what one of the things that people need to be doing right now. Um, and anyway, it's oh my gosh, we have the question of the arts and the place of the arts and free speech and free expression and all that wonderful stuff. I'm making this video 1 week after the massacre in Paris, so the question of the arts is big. But I just want to present a model of the arts, tragedy, mythology, all of those things that tries to get people to have a worldview in the back of their mind, a context within which they make decisions so that they can recognize patterns when they get into a critical situation and they have to make a decision quickly at a critical moment. They've been educated enough by public arts so that they can get it. They won't overreact. Um, and this is so crucial. But I can't go there. Poor you. Poor, my poor. I'm going to have so many hours of these videos that you don't need to hear me any more than I'm going to have. So let's go with temperance or self-control, an important theme in the play. The chorus says, if you go to excesses with pleasure, wealth, sexual pleasure, you're going to self-destruct. Obviously, Paris and Helen do that. Helen was also the sister of Clytemnestra. So, again, pleasure and power are linked. They're linked in families, and they're linked in the psyche, and they're linked in political situations. The next virtue is courage, and Aristotle talked about citizen courage, the courage to face dangerous situations when your leaders ask you to, and that's the herald. The herald has citizen courage, but he doesn't have rational courage because it's for the wrong reason. And Aristotle says that. He says citizens are not courageous because they don't act nobly in the face of a possible early death for the right reason. They're doing it because they fear ostracism if they don't do it, or because they want public honor. And that's not good because you would be motivated to fight even in an unjust war, to engage in massacre just to get honor from your society, which if your society is irrational, win at any cost, then you'd be willing to do it. So the herald did not criticize the massacre, the sack of Troy. He was not critical, but he was proud of his country. He was proud that he won. So he definitely has that quality of citizen courage. Okay, the chorus members have rational courage because they do explain that they had been soldiers before, so when they were young, they took those risks for their city. Um, but they also have the courage to speak out. So they have the courage to not speak when Clytemnestra and Aegisthus are ruling, because um, the courage to be silent for the sake of the well-being of the city. But then they have the courage to tell Agamemnon he was wrong, and they disagree with him, and they think they should be his advisor. And then they have the courage to tell Aegisthus that he's horrible, even when he threatens to ostracize or imprison them. So they have moral courage, and they have rational courage. They will face situations of fear for the right reason, in the right way, at the right time. And they change in their attitude toward power. Okay, anger is another one, obviously. The family of the House of Atreus overreacts in situations involving anger. They take revenge, and the chorus does not. Um, so that's an important vice that needs to be overcome. And the chorus says, those who kill will be killed. When you take revenge, revenge will be taken on you. Clytemnestra was one who, when after she killed Agamemnon, she thought, okay, now I've appeased the injustice of killing Iphigenia, so now let's let the bloodletting stop. Let's stop. It's over. And the chorus, I was like, you must be kidding. They just totally disagree with her. They don't want someone to go stab her, but they want Orestes to come back. It's like, this is totally wrong that Aegisthus is ruling the city. The son of Agamemnon, Orestes, is the one with the rightful heir, and he needs to come back. They don't say, and they should stab to death Aegisthus and Clytemnestra. He doesn't talk about killing. He just talks about who is the just ruler. Okay, the other one is rational pride. Rational pride is knowing the kind of honor that you deserve, having good judgment about how you ought to be honored based on your contribution to the well-being of the city. Now, a person who has this is willing not to be honored as much as they deserve, just for the sake of the well-being of the city. So they're willing to underreact in relationship to pride, public recognition, because they know in their own minds that they deserve recognition. They're not going to fight for it, because there's too many ways that rulers mess up in these judgments. So the chorus, when they are treated badly by Aegisthus and Clytemnestra, when they're humiliated, both before Agamemnon comes and afterwards, they know that the rulers are wrong. They don't believe. It's not, might doesn't make right. Because you're in power doesn't mean you define who makes the best contribution. So they definitely have a natural standard for all these virtues. It's a universal standard. It's a standard every ruler and every city has to abide by, and when they don't, they're wrong. They have the pride and a sense of pride to speak to Agamemnon and let him know that they think they have good judgment and he should listen to them. And then they have the sense of pride to know that Aegisthus and Clytemnestra are totally wrong. Ambition, rational ambition. They want to be Agamemnon's advisors, and they're correct about that. And but they don't try to overpower Clytemnestra and Aegisthus before he comes home, because that it just isn't going to help. Sociability is that you accept certain injustices for the sake of stability, and that's what they did when they accepted their mistreatment. Friendship is important. The highest kind of friendships are friends dedicated to promoting the good, talking to each other about justice and truth and virtue. And that's what the chorus does. They talk to each other. They're a group of friends, and they confirm each other's opinions. They change their opinions. For example, when Agamemnon, when there's a rumor that he's been stabbed, some of them, they react differently. Some of them say, "Oh, we've got to go and do something right now," and other ones say, "Wait a sec, wait a sec, we have to confirm it first." And so they have this conversation, and collectively, they end up doing the right thing. Self-knowledge is very important. The chorus are the group of people that first of all admit their ignorance. They're the only ones that admit ignorance. Because they admit ignorance, they're open. They're wanting to find out what they don't know. And because they seek wisdom, they love wisdom, they actually learn and they become wiser. So they're intellectually honest about what they know and what they don't know. And at the beginning, they say, "I don't know anything." And by the end, they say, "Wait a second, I know a few things." Right? Which I've said before. Greed is self-destructive. Revenge is self-destructive. Those who kill will be killed. The powers of justice to rectify wrongs, to distribute power, to ultimately a just ruler will rule. The unjust will not be able to prevail. Citizens will rebel. Society will become unstable. So they do learn, and they learn enough for people to know how they ought to live. The pleasure from profit, obviously they think greed is bad. The principles of Agamemnon, we should have no mercy on people who acted unjustly. The chorus is a little bit more willing they want Agamemnon to be a little bit more sensitive to what's going on and make some distinctions, which of course he should have, because again, Clytemnestra agreed with him and killed him for that reason. The rectification of wrongs, the chorus is critical of Agamemnon and Clytemnestra's ideas and has better judgment about that. The distribution of power, they know that they should be given power as advisors, but not power as the monarch, as leaders. Equity, they know how to apply. They're much better at applying a law or a principle to a particular situation. So, they also are always commenting. One of their main comments is wisdom comes through suffering. And Menelaus refused to suffer. He wanted his woman back and created a lot of problems. Agamemnon, in relation to Iphigenia, he refused to suffer and created a lot of problems. The herald didn't want to suffer. He didn't want to talk about the downside of the war. And it just allows leaders to go on overreacting in war and declaring war too soon, allowing for massacres, all sorts of stuff. Clytemnestra did not want to suffer, so she ended up making other people suffer, not just Agamemnon, but her whole city suffers because she refused to suffer. Aegisthus will not suffer. He wants to regain power. He thinks he's just by taking over, and he's wrong. All he does is destroy the city. The citizens will never accept it, and the city will be unstable for a long time. Okay, so here's a brief list of the character traits of the chorus. They admit their ignorance. They have a passion for wisdom. They love truth. They don't overreact. They get the facts. They love justice. They figure out how justice works in human history. They use all their powers of thought. They accept suffering. They take responsibility for their opinions and their actions. They don't pity themselves. They're not paralyzed by fear. They learn from their mistakes. They set their life goal as doing whatever's necessary to bring the city redemption from distress, to help their city to flourish. And they're very aware of the fact that people have real power and real choices. They're not fatalists. Okay, so those are the qualities that Aeschylus is trying to develop in the citizens. Okay, that's enough on that. We could go over some other stuff with Aristotle, but let's just go with tragedy. I'm just going to summarize, and you can see from what I've said that this play has all the character traits Aristotle describes as belonging to tragedy. It has unity of plot, character, and action. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's a serious issue. The characters are closely related from ruling families. The characters are good in the sense that they have good opinions. They think they're just. They're true to the type. There are certain archetypes, and they're consistent. They all have some idea of the good upon which they're acting, even if they're wrong. The characters are better, worse, and intermediate. Okay, Aegisthus is the worst. Clytemnestra is probably second worst. The herald has his issues. He's not capable of citizenship in a city that's going to be self-governing. He can only be obedient. He will be a citizen in a monarchy where he's asked to obey, but he will not succeed in this kind of society Athens wanted to develop. Agamemnon is intermediate, and then the chorus are better than most. Okay, the play includes thought. The characters are telling you what they're thinking, and they can manipulate people through speech, or they can educate people through speech. This runs throughout tragedy. The power of words, okay, the power of ideas. So people get ideas, they express them in words, and that has a lot of power. They all think they're just, for example. They're all motivated by some idea of good and evil. And the point of educating your nous, your intuition, is what is the part of your mind that focuses on the big questions of good and evil, the nature of the universe, our place in the universe, is the first principles of reality, and then practical wisdom is the ability to do what's best in the immediate situation. So you're making history. You're incarnating the good. And that's where the chorus incarnated the good. Every situation they got into, they tried, they did what they could do to make things better, right? Try to get the herald to think more. Try to get Clytemnestra to wake up. Try to get Agamemnon to listen to them. Try to condemn Aegisthus and tell him there's no way you're going to be able to rule this place. Try to get the herald to be a little more thoughtful. Give him a different idea of patriotism. And then recognize Cassandra. She's a woman, she's a Trojan, she's a slave, but she still loves, she knows the truth. And so they're totally dedicated to wisdom. Okay, suffering, again. I've just said that the other characters refuse to suffer. The chorus suffers, and they don't feel sorry for themselves. Wisdom comes through suffering. But they also know that they have raised their children moderately, and they don't suffer. And the people who raise their children to be greedy suffer. Kids grow up to be monsters. Let's see. And they know that they suffer at the hands of other people who refuse to suffer, who take revenge, for example. The plot is most important, the sequence of events, the killing of Agamemnon in this case. People go from happiness to misery, and the cause is a mistake in judgment. So Agamemnon makes mistakes in judgment and walks right into his death. Clytemnestra makes mistakes in judgment and ends up killing Agamemnon. She really thinks the bloodletting will stop, and it won't. She's totally deluded. So, reversal and recognition from ignorance to wisdom. The chorus does have a reversal. They move closer and closer to wisdom. It's not a sudden reversal. It's this slow process of self-education. The other characters, Clytemnestra never learns. Aegisthus never learns. But the audience can learn. The audience should learn. There's irony, reversal and recognition. There's a difference between the world of appearances and the world of reality. And it's important to educate yourself to make that difference. The catharsis. You're supposed to identify with the characters. Pity, pathos. Fear for your ability to make the same mistake. And then purge yourself from those mistakes. Say, oh, I get it. So when I'm in that situation, I'm going to be very careful. I'm going to recognize, oh my God, this is just like Agamemnon getting flattered by his wife. Or this is just like the herald. Or this is, right? Identify, oh my God, I'm in this situation. And flush it out. Have an intellectual clarification, insight. Have an emotional clarification, getting the emotional poison out of your body. And then thinking the right thought and making the right choice. The play is poetry, not history. It shows patterns. Each of the characters are archetypes. That's why we can learn from them, because they are archetypes. And learning is natural. People like to learn. And so the idea was you'd present these plays at the religious festival where everything stopped. Everybody stopped working. People from the rural areas came into the city. Everybody's there. And they watch the play. And then they go to the taverna and they start arguing. And they start talking. And they learn about each other's characters. They learn about what they hadn't thought about in the play. They learn that what they thought they learned, what they thought the message was, somebody else thinks no. And they just learn that, oh my God, it's complicated. And also our conversations in the taverna are a lot like all the arguments in the tragedies. Yes, but that's how you learn. You don't learn by just taking in, just memorizing the play. You have to learn by talking to people about it. That's how you incarnate good action. Is it you relate to real people so that you can make real concrete decisions in concrete contexts. Um, and you know how to deal that there are people who disagree with you, and you have to learn how to deal with different characters. Not everybody is just you. And the point is to avoid unnecessary suffering. Okay? There's plenty of suffering that's just a function of the human condition, human vulnerability. But a whole lot of suffering, I would say more, is due to human error, mistakes in judgment. Um, okay, so one last wrap up. The desire for wisdom is the only way to avoid social chaos and or tyranny, authoritarianism. The play, tragedy, the whole tradition shows why we should seek wisdom, how we should seek wisdom. The life of the mind is dialectical and self-critical. We need to constantly be having dialogues with ourselves and others. Emotion is corruptible. Reason is corruptible. Reason is spiritual. We want to live for the sake of something greater than ourselves, justice, truth. So Aegisthus, even Aegisthus, Clytemnestra, they always justify their actions on some idea of justice and truth. That's why just having good opinions is not good enough. Human reason is creative. We create our lives literally we literally create who we are and human history, our country's history, our legacy, the human legacy, and then human reason is the only source of hope, because blind faith, the seers looking for some kind of weird sign, it's only when we use our minds and we combine our spiritual yearnings with reasoning that we can actually act well, and that's the source of hope. Human beings can't live without hope. Acting on irrational emotion destroys hope. But the whole project that Aeschylus and the Greeks engaged in was ultimately optimistic. They believed in people. They believed that if you have all these tragedies that expose the whole human condition, the good and evil in everyone, and especially the good and evil in powerful people, if you can get the citizens to be critical thinkers, not blindly obedient, you can have this self-governing city. This is very optimistic, and our founding fathers were optimistic, and I hope that we can continue this tradition, and it's always being threatened. It's so easy to lose it, for people to go to an extreme, to create chaos, to need an authoritarian ruler, and to lose that wonderful free society where people are ruling and being ruled in turn, where they are debating public issues, where they are self-critical, critical of others. They're thinking at a higher level. And I truly hope that we can preserve it, but it's always threatened. We have these authoritarian movements in Europe, in America. Never assume that you can't lose free speech, freedom of choice. The Athenians thought they could never lose it, and they lost it. So we should not be so arrogant and proud and blind.